something not plugged in?
I tripped over something.
Looks like an extension.
We don't have to hear Alderman Jetty.
Hey, that's not kind.
Here we go. 5:30 on the dot. Good evening. A meeting of the Board of Public Works is scheduled for Tuesday, August 22nd, and we're opening the meeting at 5:30. May we please have the roll call? Diane?
Mayor Donchis is absent. Commissioner Ackerman,
Here.
Commissioner Pappas,
Here.
Commissioner Moriarty,
Here.
Commissioner Tease.
Present?
Very good. Thank you very much. May we also simply acknowledge that our Alderman liaison, Mr. Jetty, is here as well? And do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Move to approve the agenda as presented.
Do we have a second? Do we need a second? Nope. Any questions? Nope. Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
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 Very good. Item 3,
Move to approve the minutes of the Board of Public Works meeting of July 30th, 2019.
any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, we're now at public comment. Is there anyone from the public present that would like to speak in front of the board? Seeing none, we shall move on to solid waste. Do we have a motion under item A?
Move to approve a contract with SCS Field Services of Reston, Virginia to construct an expansion of the landfill gas collection system in the Phase 1-2 landfill in the amount of $323,000, $470. Funding will be through Department 168 Solid Waste Fund Bond Activity Landfill Gas Expansion FY19.
Very good. Any discussion on this item? Seeing none,
Well, I wonder if we
Go
should
ahead.
just have a quick explanation just for.
By all
especially
means.
Folks that live
Superintendent,
near there.
Ms. Lefevre?
Absolutely. Yep, this is our annual gas expansion for the landfill to help control odors. This one's a little bit unique. We have to do it right away because we have, when we do our SEM readings, our groundwater emissions readings, our ground emissions readings, we have 150 days to resolve those. We've asked for an extension, and by the time that this one's done, our extension would be up, so we'd be fulfilling that requirement by DES.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Item B.
Move to approve the change order number 1 to the contract with Charter Contracting Company LLC of Boston, Massachusetts in an amount not to exceed $175,000 for the construction of the Phase 3 landfill. Funding will be through Department 168 Solid Waste Fund Bond Activity Phase 3 landfill.
Very good. Superintendent, you want to comment, sir?
Yeah, this change order, the bulk of the change order is coming from delays from DES. We sent in our application. They were running a little bit late on that. It went a little bit longer than we thought, by 30 days. We got all the approvals, but Charter had planned on doing a certain amount of work in those 30 days, and they didn't get to do it until we got the approval from DES.
Any other questions or discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Very good. We have a discussion point under item C relative to penalties associated with violating solid waste policy. Is that something you're going to comment on, sir?
I think the director's going to start, and then I'll finish.
So we'll work on this together. So we had a pretty good discussion, I think at our, Commissioner Pappas was the last one, left at our last recycling meeting, but we had a good discussion regarding recycling and a number of other things, and I think this is probably something that we can take up more at the recycling committee meeting, but we just wanted to talk quickly. We're very concerned that we're receiving materials from outside of Nashua. Landfill space is getting tighter and tighter, both here in New Hampshire, Massachusetts, and other areas. There are many states that have moratoriums on landfills, including Massachusetts and Maine. So it's getting more and more difficult and more expensive to dispose of materials. So we felt that we should put some controls in place to do whatever we can to prevent that from happening. Some of the things that we're doing is we're requiring, as we always have, we're watching permits very closely. Having another scale operator has helped a lot with that. We're asking drivers to disclose the contents of their loads and also provide an address from where in Nashua the material is coming from. If they don't know where the material is coming from in Nashua, they're turned away. We're not accepting them. If they come back with an address, we're also not only documenting that, but we're checking the loads. We have, we're documenting all of the loads that we're checking. We're checking all loads that are not trash now, and we're documenting that on the certified weight ticket as well. And we're spot checking 3 loads randomly daily. That can become a little bit complicated, and the superintendent might comment on this more. Sometimes a company will have a warehouse in, say, Massachusetts and one here in Nashua, so they're transferring product back and forth, so there could be boxes that have addresses from Massachusetts. So, it's important when we catch something like that to bring the company in and question them as to why we're seeing that discrepancy, why we're seeing material from outside of Nashua.
Can you just
Yes.
describe when you say something that's not trash?
So it's something that's mostly construction and demolition debris is what we're checking.
So we can think of either making a very expensive dump, or I remember last time we talked about just getting rid of this
Yes.
construction demolition altogether.
Yes. So probably 3 recycling committee meetings ago, the board had decided to increase the C&D cost from $90 to $200 a ton. So Dory, Attorney Clark, is working on crafting legislation now to do that. We were hoping to just totally rewrite the solid waste rules, but that's turning out to be a little bit more complicated because there's a strong connection to the charter, and it's kind of a mess. So, she's just going to craft legislation. I think the mayor and I believe Alderman Jettie, correct me if I'm wrong, has agreed to sponsor that legislation to at least address the C&D immediately. So that is something that the Board of Aldermen should be coming before the Board of Aldermen soon.
If it's that fly's
The
been
fly
around for a
that
bit. I'm wondering if we can put something in just to that piece of legislation that we would be able to increase the C&D or just get rid of it altogether. I know there was discussion to get rid of it altogether, and they said, well, we don't want to see anti-business, but this is sounding like it's getting to be a real problem.
I'm concerned that it may be, yes.
So can we do, if it's just that piece in the legislation, if it's just that small piece, can we have a little bit more leeway as to whether we can increase that particular fee or just get rid of the C&D altogether?
Let me ask Attorney Clark that question. That was my goal, was to try to not have any prices at all in the ordinances and allow that to be at the discretion of the Board of Public Works to decide what. And apparently it's a little more complicated than that because of the charter. I think and again, I'll let Attorney Clark come in and speak to it because she's more well-versed than I am. But I think that there's some complication because in the charter, I'm not sure that the Board of Public Works has that authority. So I think it was delegated from the Board of Aldermen in an ordinance to the Board of Public Works. So it's a little bit complicated to change. So, but let me ask her that question. If we can
Because,
just
yes,
not have a number, but just leave that C&D price, the cost at the discretion of the Board of Public Works.
Or the
I'll ask
option
that.
just to ban, I guess the option just to ban it, which, given our landfill situation now.
Okay. Let me ask her those questions and see what.
Thank you.
Any other commissioners have questions or comments? Director, I do. We're talking about penalties. Your thought process relative to that, would that be like a fine if somebody violated and/or a ban from actually dumping? Or is it beyond?
Well,
Fines and
let me
bans.
I just want to mention just a couple other things before we got a little off target. I just want to finish, and then we'll talk about, Jeff will talk about what we were thinking. So I had mentioned that we're spot checking 3 loads randomly. We also are not allowing any private containers to be stored at the landfill anymore, so, which has been a practice that was done for years. We also have an employee now every Saturday that is at the gate checking permits. You'd be amazed at how many people we're catching just by doing that. You see people will turn around before they even get to the landfill when they see somebody there. So that's been very effective. The other thing that we noticed is when we had the manual gate, people knew that the scale closed, and so they were sneaking in the outbound gate. And so now that we have the electric gate, that will help too, because people can get out, but people can't get in after the scale's closed. So that's been a positive thing. We also, the board had voted to add an additional landfill CEO instead of an operator. That will help because that will also be somebody else in the landfill and in the recycling
And just
center.
break down what CEO is for the public.
Collection equipment operator. So somebody that drives a trash truck, essentially. And then we also have a camera now that will be able to look in, the scale operators will be able to see in the load. Now, that's not always effective because oftentimes the loads are covered, but when they're not covered, they will be able to see in the load and be able to capture that information as well. So we're trying, and again, we're open to other suggestions, but as you can see, we're trying to do whatever we can to make sure that only materials from Nashua enter the recycling center and landfill. My intent is to send out a letter to all commercial customers once the board decides what the penalties should be, just sort of explaining everything and like if this is what will happen if you violate our policy. So with that, I'll turn it over to Jeff. To your point,
Can I ask
Commissioner
one quick
Ackerman.
question? I'm sorry.
Yeah, absolutely.
So before, oh, I'm sorry, I wasn't recognized, I apologize.
You're fine. Go ahead, Commissioner.
I'm getting out of hand here. So will we have a recycling committee meeting before this is put through to the Board of Aldermen?
Yes. I'm sorry, before the C&D legislation, we could. We certainly could.
Yeah, because I know it's late, people are, it's late in the summer and that kind of thing, but I would love to just get the specifics before we go ahead, if that's okay.
So why don't I ask, I'm going to mention these things and see if it can't be broad enough. And then why don't I bring the legislation, the proposed legislation, before it goes to the Board of Aldermen, to the recycling committee meeting? Does that make sense?
That would be awesome,
Okay,
thank you.
we'll do that.
Excellent. Superintendent, did you want to comment further
Ye-
on penalties?
Yep, absolutely. Some of the penalties, these are just options that, ultimately you guys can make the decision on this. The director and I spoke a little bit, their first offense, if we find someone that's bringing in stuff that isn't supposed to be coming in from another town or whatever. First offense, maybe 2 months of a permit suspension. Second offense, go up to six months suspension. That's gonna hit them in the pocketbook. If they're doing things illegally. And then the third one, they lose their permit for forever, or until they can prove that they're only doing Nashua, stuff within Nashua. There could be a multitude of different options that we want to do. It's just a discussion point, so I think at our next recycling committee, we can bring those up and talk about it.
Excellent. Yes, Commissioner Pappas.
And just in case we forget between now and the recycling committee meeting, if we have those options available, another one I would say is that even each offense, that we might put it in front of the Board of Public Works, I don't know if it's the legalities behind listing a company name, or at the very least to say X company has been.
We could do that under
We'd have to do it in
non-public.
non-public, but we could do that.
But that's the other thing, I mean, I don't wanna walk around with a little trash badge, you know, I'm the officer, but, I mean, I'm gonna have to have the authority to be able to pull a permit, not wait for it to come to Board of Public Works and then do it. I mean, we wanna do it immediately. Is that?
I think Commissioner Pappas was saying.
You just
that
wanna be
they
notified that we're
She
doing
wants
it.
to be
More
notified.
more the, number one, in public session to say we have,
Mm-hmm.
if we can't say a company, if that's what legal says, we have pulled so-and-so.
Sure.
A privilege,
I-
just so that others are aware, it's not about us overriding you, it's just
Sure.
more, so there's an awareness out there.
Well,
Well, it's not that you're
fooling around.
it's not that you're overriding me, you guys are the boss. I just wanna be able to
Well,
do
no-
this.
well, no,
I really don't think that this is gonna happen very often, once they find out and they get notified of this. Once they lose the privileges of the landfill, that's their livelihood. I mean, where else are they gonna go? So I think that we're gonna see that it's gonna turn around. Ever since we started doing these spot checks, there's been a lot less flow
And if-
coming into the landfill.
and if we send them a letter telling them that we're pulling their permit, that's public information, so
Yep.
that could be included in the packet. That would
Yeah,
be
I mean,
subject to right
yeah,
to know,
I think,
I think. I mean, I'll double check that with legal, but I believe it is.
as long as it doesn't have their, what are the legalities, I think that we
Right.
just want to back up that we're not going to tolerate this, we're not fooling around.
Agreed.
All right, very good. Thank you very much. Thank you, Superintendent. We'll move over to waste, Alderman Jettie, I'm sorry.
Could I just suggest that before you come to the next meeting with this, before you ask for it to be adopted by the Board of Aldermen, that you do some kind of a survey as to what other landfills,
We're kind of unique. We're one of the only municipal landfills around. Everyone else takes public stuff in. We're the only landfill in New Hampshire that takes only city trash from their city. Everyone else takes it for a profit. We don't. We want to conserve airspace.
okay, well, but there must be other landfills in the country that have a similar problem and have penalties that they impose. We're not that unique.
We could look into it, but I don't think we're going to find many
We are actually
municipalities.
very unique in that sense, because most landfills are for profit. It's very rare to see a municipal landfill of this size. I don't know of any, honestly. There may be some others in the country, but it's rare. And part of it is because these landfills are very valuable. The city, I think, was very wise to keep this, not privatize it and keep it for their benefit. We have another 50 years now that we control the future of our waste stream. But I think it would take a lot of effort, I think, to try to find something similar. Most of them are privately owned.
Yes, Commissioner Pappas.
I agree, we need to do something short-term, but long-term, I know that we sometimes rely on the money that we get from private haulers, but if the space is that valuable, we might in the future, in the next couple of years, just say, is it feasible for us to just continue to take outside trash? But not for the discussion for tonight. But in the future, I have no problem. I think that it's good for us to meet in committee to discuss various departments, but it's a real concern if the land space is that valuable, and we're finding that people are getting desperate and they're dumping stuff anywhere. I think that we really might take a look at that, because I think that's something that will take a while to put together.
So I think we are looking for so because now we'll likely catch some haulers bringing in. There's already been a few incidents. We need some guidance from the board as to what penalties that you think that we can impose. I don't know if you agree with what the superintendent and I have sort of been thinking, or is there something else? But we need something to be able to, we can't just say, oh, you violated and we need some guidance from you as to what you think we should do when that happens, when we catch people.
Tonight, I thought perhaps we're gonna have another recycling committee meeting before we impose, is that correct or not?
Well, what would be your guidance if we catch people tomorrow, if we don't agree upon some? What do you think?
I'm sorry, I apologize.
Go right ahead,
Yeah, we're
Commissioner
having-
Pappas.
Okay,
It's
all
open.
right.
Yeah, it's fine.
I wasn't recognized. I think temporarily, we start with this and see how it works out.
Okay,
That's how I feel. That's just my personal view. But I think we should probably take a vote. I
we
mean,
can talk about it further.
but as you say, if it happens tomorrow, if we say interim, in an interim basis, we'll do this, because I thought it had to go through legal. I guess that's why I was a little confused.
No, the Board of Public Works would have the authority for this, to impose. Fines are a little more complicated, but just for penalties like this, the Board of Public Works would have that authority.
I think the ordinance actually states that you could fine $20 and you could revoke their permit. I think that's what we read the
Yeah, it
last
does-
time.
it
So a
does
whole
say that we can
$20
revoke
fine
it.
is
Yeah,
a
yeah.
lot to a commercial customer,
What it doesn't say is the time frame. How long do you revoke a permit? So that's why we're just suggesting, the 2
Start off with
months,
2
6
months. I mean,
months, and
I've been
then-
telling, to be honest with you, I've been telling a couple of the customers that I've put on hold right now that they're on hold until further notice. So, I mean, I could do that also, but, until further notice, is that a month, is that 2 months? They're wondering how long they're on hold for.
Okay, if it's okay, I guess I'd make the motion to just, to go ahead and go with the, with what was set forth by the superintendent and the director, and until we come up with a permanent policy. If someone comes in tomorrow, it gives the superintendent, say, no, this is what we've decided. That would be my motion, as to.
Super.
Okay.
Seeing any discussion on Commissioner Pappas? Yes, Commissioner Moriarty.
That was the motion made.
Yes.
I was just curious, Superintendent, how you came up with the 2-month initial penalty as.
Just random. I went 2, 6, and then permanent. We could do 3, 6 permanent. It was just what we thought of. I mean,
Yeah.
that's why I said ultimately it's up to you guys how you want to do it.
Oftentimes, the police department would give you a warning on the first offense and then hit you with a stiff penalty. So I was just curious.
We could do that for sure, but
I feel like the warning will be the letter that I send out to everyone, saying, here, this is what's gonna happen. If you're caught bringing material from outside of Nashua, you will lose your permit for 2 months, first offense, and, so I feel like that's the first warning. I think,
Correct, but you also have people on hold presently who haven't been warned.
yeah, and those are in a gray area. See, it's a very complex thing for me to say that this material's coming from out of town. For instance, I had a truck come in today with demo in it, but there was one garbage bag in it. The garbage bag came out of the truck, my driver got out, opened it up, and he found mail from Derry. Did that whole load come from Derry? Or did someone go by and toss a bag in there? It's gonna be a difficult thing for me to say, you brought this in from Derry. What I would do is I'd be contacting the hauler and say, listen, we found stuff from Derry in there. That's unacceptable. I went, and I'd go check the place that it came from, the address that it came from, to make sure there was construction being done there, to verify that. But why was there trash from Derry in there? Someone walked by and threw it in, so it's a
so
very
all-
difficult thing.
But all of these haulers, remember, have commercial permits. They know full well that they're not to bring any materials in from outside of Nashua, so it's not like they don't know. They know. So,
I sent certified letters last January 2018 to everyone that was a commercial customer, stating that Nashua trash only, and that we'd be spot checking. This is gonna be kind of a second warning to them when the director says, these are what the fines are.
I mean, we've seen, since we've been doing this, we've seen certain haulers, and I won't mention names, go from bringing in 5 or 6 loads to 1 load a day. So, people were really taking advantage of the fact that,
And that's why I said that these fines are probably gonna be very rare that are gonna happen, but there's a possibility that they could come. And that's why we just want something in writing or something voted on so I can say, yep, this is the way it is.
Commissioner Tease.
I'm just going to give an example, and I'm interested in feedback. It's always difficult to monitor, right? But let's say Bob Smith of Smith Demo and Cleanup is found guilty of bringing in a load from Derry. Are we penalizing Bob Smith? Are we penalizing Smith Construction and Demo, or whatever example I used? Or anybody, because nothing stops him from going to in court. It's pretty easy. You can do it in about 5 minutes on the internet. Because he could go and change his corporate name and be bringing stuff in the next day. How do we monitor that?
That's
Or did
tough.
I just give them all an idea?
That's tough. You'd pull the permit for whoever the permit, whoever's name the permit was in is who you'd penalize. But you're right. I mean, there's nothing that would stop Bob Smith from having, his wife,
Start up Sue Smith.
who has a different
Between the
name,
two
start up
of us.
a new company.
So do we need to consider, I'm just throwing it out there for discussion, but is it Bob Smith, is it Smith Construction and related officers? Or is it, because in my mind, Bob Smith could go home that night, start a new company and apply for a decal, and he's in the next day, and we get the same problem.
Excuse me, how long is the process to secure a new permit? What is the process to secure?
Quick.
To secure a new permit, all they have to do is come in with a registration of the vehicle and buy a commercial permit.
So is it the vehicle maybe we say cannot come into our premise as well as the person?
It's tough. It's one of those things that it's very, very tough to monitor and police. I mean, that's kind of why I made the comment of wearing the badge.
We could certainly say anybody associated, but we may not always know, that that's tough. That's gonna be tough for us, because we're not doing like a legal search of everybody.
I mean,
suppose that's possible, but that would be very costly to try to, but we could try that. If we knew, we could.
You got to be, not to misstep my speaking here, but you got to be careful with that because if, let's say, one of the big name brand trash trucks that drive around here, one of the big blue and red ones or blue colored ones comes in, are we associating their whole company with this fine? Or am I associating that one truck that came in? I mean, you're hitting a big company. I mean, it would curb them from doing it ever again. Not saying that any of them would, but, you have to be careful with the fines that way also. So there's a lot to think about, and there's a lot of moving pieces with this.
I'm sure you'll figure it out.
Oh, I'm loving it.
Commissioner Pappas.
So I think for us to do this temporarily is not a bad thing, and if you have 6 months, maybe half of it 3 months, I think that we come, that we let them know that we're not fooling around. But that's one of the things that we hashed out, that we tried to hash out at the recycling committee, the last round, last winter. And I was actually all for just banning C&D. And I know others said, well, we might look anti-business. And I think we can't be anti-taxpayer. So I think that we have, that's my opinion. And we can, my view is I really like those workshops where we can roll up our sleeves and get our business done. But I don't want to leave the superintendent and the director stuck with no punishment while we're sorting this stuff out. Because I think the stuff might take a bit.
Yeah, I think you're correct.
But at the very least, he's not stuck with,
What do we do?
I'm gonna hit you in the hand with a ruler.
Right.
Terrific. So there's a motion on the floor, and the motion is, if I'm not mistaken, Diane, if you have minutes or notes there, to take the suggestion of the director and the superintendent to put a 2-month penalty immediately, a second penalty, second instance of a penalty would be 6 months, and then a third instance of a penalty would be a complete ban. And if I'm not mistaken, that's the motion. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? The ayes have it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to wastewater, item A.
I'll move to approve the user warrants as presented.
Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Item B.
Move to approve the contract with JB Safety, Inc. of Caryville, Kentucky, Texas, in an amount not to exceed $136,400, coating of the digester tank. Funding will be through Department 169 wastewater fund, wastewater digester tank coating.
Very good. I see we have a representative from wastewater here. If you'd like to comment?
My name is Bill Keating. I'm the wastewater project engineer. I'm filling in for Dave Boucher, the superintendent. He couldn't make it tonight. So this project is to coat our gas tank, which holds digester gas. It was built in the year 2000. It's never been worked on or had maintenance on coatings and things like that, so it needs a coating. We're going to upgrade the tank in a subsequent project. So the first step is to coat it. And we had a pre-bid with four coating contractors coming in, and unfortunately only one bid on it. So I checked their references. They were very positive. They seem like a very good company. They do much bigger projects than this. So I think we have a good contractor for this work.
Very good. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you.
Thank
very much, Mr. Keating. Parks and Recreation, item A.
I'll move to approve the purchase of roadside and trail mowing services from the low bidder Cole Farms of Chelmsford, Mass., in an amount not to exceed $24,000. Funding for this purchase will be from Department 177 Parks and Recreation Funds General and Trust account category Professional Services, $20,000. Department 169 Wastewater Fund wastewater account category 55 other purchase services.
Any discussion? Commissioner Tease.
Protocol question. My recollection was that anything under 25,000 didn't need to come for approval. Wasn't that the case?
I defer to the director on that.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so this is, we're giving a
Information.
stamp of approval anyway.
I believe so. Okay,
You didn't need to bring this.
so another commissioner has a question or a
Could
comment?
have been home by now.
Yeah.
Commissioner Pappas?
I was just curious as to why we're spending $4,000 from wastewater.
Why?
Nick Caggiano, Superintendent, Park and Rec. The wastewater department is responsible for maintaining the levee along the Merrimack River. So I kind of manage the mowing, but they fund it.
Oh, okay. All right, thanks.
Okay. I know it's a moot point, but there is a motion in front of us. Commissioner Ortiz's comments are well respected, and we'll know that going forward. I did have a question just quickly for the director. And I know that this is for trails, and obviously not everything in the city of Nashua is trails, but riding along the parkway, I saw quite a bit of growth along the parkway. And it's not a trail, but it's a sidewalk.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any plans to do any, is this part of that?
Yes, it is.
Yes. Yes.
All right.
I think
Terrific.
some of the confusion here was that this was a trust, and but the board recently voted that we don't need to bring anything in the trust either. So next time we'll catch that and
Not a problem.
get everybody home a little earlier.
Terrific. Let's move the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? The ayes have it.
Thank you.
Superintendent. All right, Engineering Department. Do I have a motion on item A?
Move to approve the residential and commercial wastewater service permits and fees as submitted.
Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Motion B.
Move to approve a contract for Monica Drive Drainage Improvement Project with RWC Enterprise for the amount not to exceed $129,900. Funding will be through Department 169 Wastewater Fund Wastewater Activity Stormwater Abatement.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it. Item C.
Move to approve the engineering consultant contract to Hazen of Manchester, New Hampshire, to update the CSO long-term control plan in an amount not to exceed $487,760. Funding for this contract will be through Department 169 wastewater, fund wastewater activity, consent decree operational.
I see we have a representative from engineering with us tonight. If you'd like to introduce yourself and comment on this item, sir?
Good evening. My name is Pete Kohalmi, Deputy City Engineer. So this is a contract with a consultant called Hazen to update a long-term CSO control plan. The plan was first put into effect in the late 90s. It's a mandate part of the EPA's Clean Water Act, and recently the EPA has started asking for more. They want the plan updated, and they are looking to see what else the city can do to clean up their combined sewer overflows. And this contract is for a comprehensive plan through Hazen, a consultant that we've been working with for several years and have had good experiences with.
Very good. Any discussion? Commissioner Moriarty.
Yeah, well, moving forward on this project, I mean, they're gonna look for suggestions as to how we can improve the water quality, and I'm just wondering your opinion on that, because, you know, we already decided that it would be too costly to separate the two, and the other option would be storage, which we seem to be, I thought, maxed out on during the storms, and the third would be to increase chlorination or chemical. So what's your opinion on those?
You want me to take that, Pete?
Sure.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Peter's not as involved with this as some of us are. So, the city, as you know, decided years ago to go the CSO route, including building the wet weather facility, which is kind of like a large CSO, although we're treating the material better than most of the CSOs. So we are still having CSO discharges, as you know. And our wet weather facility has not really come up to speed. It's not handling the flow that we need it to handle. We have, Dave's working right now on installing some new screens and bar racks that will take the material off the screen, so the material will flow better. So we think we're very close to getting wet weather operating and taking the flow that it needs to. At that time, and we have this agreement with the EPA, once that's up, running it at full capacity, then we need to see, are we still having CSO discharges? And then what EPA will require us to do is, at least that's my hope, is that we can just then separate in those areas where we're still having discharges. So that's sort of our plan, but we've taken a strong position. I say we, the city engineer, myself, Dave Boucher, have taken a strong position saying to the EPA, look, we really can't evaluate the effectiveness of our CSO program until wet weather is operating at full capacity. And they've agreed to that. And so we're working towards that right now. But I think that's where we're headed. Manchester, years ago, decided to separate all of their sewers rather than, although they do have discharges. In fact, they have far more discharge into the Merrimack than we do from CSOs. There was an article in the Union Leader that today, I don't know if anybody saw it, but that was saying that Lowell and Manchester are the largest contributors to CSO discharges in the Merrimack. So, but we're hoping that once wet weather is handling the flow it should, we're really hoping that we'll see far fewer CSO discharges and then separate in those areas where we're still having issues. That's our hope. So we'll certainly continue to keep the board updated on that, but we're waiting, kind of in a holding pattern.
Commissioner Pappas?
Can you send that article to us? That's interesting, because I thought that, I would have thought that the source separation would have would have handled the issue better.
And that's the goal, but, and again,
Just
I don't want to
interesting.
quote Manchester because I'm not
Right.
that privy of their, where they are, but they're still, I think, in only they have 3 phases, and I think they're still in phase 1. So it's a huge amount of money that they're going to be spending, like $400 million or
Yeah, and their
something.
roads have been dug up forever.
So I think they have one small section of the city that's been separated, but they still have a lot to do. So that is their hope, though, that once they get the whole city separated, that they'll be able to,
Interesting, thank you.
yeah, hopefully eliminate. That's the goal. That's everybody's goal, is to eliminate CSI discharges. Whether we'll be able to ever do that completely, I'm not sure. Time will tell, I suppose.
Okay. Any other further conversation, discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of item C, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Item D.
Move to approve use of sidewalk quadrant funds for NRPC to complete a pedestrian bicycle transportation study for the total sum of $14,500. Funding will be through Department 160 Admin Engineering Fund Trust, account category 53, Professional and Technical Services.
Is there any discussion on item D? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Item E.
I move to approve change order 2 to Tebow Construction Corporation of Manchester, New Hampshire for the amount not to exceed $20,000 for roadway improvements on Marshall Street. Funding will be through Department 169 wastewater activity CSO flooding.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 The ayes have it. Item F.
Move to approve a change order with Sunshine Paving Corporation of Hudson, New Hampshire for the amount not to exceed $300,000 for the paving of additional roadways. Funding will be through Department 161 Street Fund Bond Activity Paving and Department 169 Wastewater Fund Wastewater Activity Sewer Structures.
Okay. Would you like to comment on this one?
Sure. So Sunshine Paving has been one of our 2 paving contractors this year. They've done a good job for us. They're actually looking for more work. And with your approval, we'd be more than happy to pave some more streets in the city. Some of the streets are left over from last year, and some of the streets are streets we wanted to do this year and was left out of the original contract.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of item F, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Item G.
We move to consider a hardship request from Michelle Rodriguez to excavate for installation of sewer, water, and gas services for a proposed 4-lot subdivision at 711 West Hollis Street, approved by the Planning Board March 21st, 2019.
Okay. Did you, the last time we were together as a group, the city engineer, Mr. Ducrain, had asked us that we take this off the agenda. Has there been some developments, sir, relative to this since the last time we met?
There should be
There's a letter
A
in
couple
your
of-
packet from Mr.
couple of
Maynard.
letters. That's right,
He did come in and meet with Engineer Dukran.
right.
And there's a letter stating his client's position in your packet.
So they have agreed to abide by the ordinance and restore the road as required, even though there was some, I guess there was some hesitation on the part of the board earlier. And there's a letter from the engineer, Mr. Maynard, and then just a few days ago, a couple of days ago, he sent another letter dated August 19th. We gave the applicant the option of taking out a 5-year bond as additional security, taking out a 5-year bond for the work on West Hall Street, and to put the board at ease. And the applicant has decided to, I guess, reject that offer. They believe simply following the ordinance should be adequate to restore the road.
Okay. Is there any discussions, questions? Commissioner Moriarty?
So is it the opinion of the engineering department for this not to go forward? Do you know?
I don't know, to be honest, I don't know where Steve stands
We-
on this.
We don't really, I think it's up to the board to consider whether
Yeah.
they believe this is a hardship or not. I mean, we never like to see anybody coming into our streets, as you don't. So we sort of, I don't know that we really have an opinion, honestly. It's up to the board to decide whether, there's about 2 years left on the moratorium. So it's a, I think, a 4-lot subdivision that they're asking to put in, so.
Just-
It's helpful when the applicant is here to plead their case, and they're not
Right.
here, so.
Before I recognize Commissioner Pampas, I just have a quick question as one of the commissioners here. I thought that as part of the ordinance, it was the right of the board to request the applicant to do a bond to ensure that we get adequate funding for bringing the road back up to speed. Wasn't that within our right through the
Yeah,
ordinance?
that is correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, but they're choosing not to do that, and they would just.
Well, we're asking for an additional
There-
bond.
Yeah,
Okay,
I'm not sure we have the authority to ask for the additional.
I don't know.
I think that was an idea that
Right, it's,
was thrown
I think it
out.
was an idea to put the board at ease.
okay. So this here, this commentary on this letter is relative to an additional bond. Okay. Any other questions, Commissioner Pappas?
We discussed this at great length, and it was just the mayor. I think maybe last month, I apologize. The first time I think we discussed this, I don't know if it was withdrawn last month or not, because I didn't stay for the meeting. But the first time, it was just the mayor, Commissioner Ackerman, and myself. And I know, I think there might have been one of us for it, one of us against, I can't recall. And the mayor didn't break the tie, so it kind of got put off. But I've remained very consistent that I think residents are very upset over all the road construction in the city. I think, not in road construction so much as the condition of the roads. And I stand by my very consistent view that we shouldn't be cutting into roads and decreasing the life of the roads. And I didn't support it the last time it was in front of the board, and I won't support it this time.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just for a little bit of clarity, it had never gone before a vote. It was tabled 2 months ago at the insistence of the mayor, because he requested that Mr. Maynard from Maiden and Parquet come into and speak to the deputy director, Andy Patricia, and/or Mr. DeCrane. He chose not to do that, and that's why it was tabled again last month. So, just for clarity, just to let you know.
Okay, it was a bit ago, so
It was tabled 2 months in a row, correct. Alderman Jettie, you had a comment?
I was just going to clarify, just as you did, what my memory was, which is consistent with yours. And plus, at the last meeting, I asked the city engineer whether or not any consideration had been given by the landowner to, instead of cutting into West Hollis Street, this property abuts
Courtney and Norma.
Norma Drive. And it's, there's a vacant, as Norma Drive intersects with West Hollis Street, there's between Norma Drive and this landowner's property, it's just a landscaped area, it's vacant. And I asked whether or not, instead of coming into West Hollis Street, whether they could instead connect into the sewer, which is in Norma Drive, and avoid the moratorium. And I don't know whether any consideration by the landowner was given to that.
Well, it's more than the sewer. It's also gas and water on the West Hollis that they need to tap into.
There's no gas and water in Norma Drive?
I'm not sure, Alderman.
I believe there
I don't know.
probably is.
Commissioner Pappas?
I apologize to the vice chair. It's been a few months since, I thought we talked about this at length. I thought, but that is correct. I do think that Mr. Maynard, I didn't recall why it was tabled. I thought we were at a standstill, but anyway.
Any other commissioners' comments? Director, I just think it's kind of prudent and wise that we seek for some direction from the city engineer's office. Is there any concern that the city engineer's office has relative to their ability to put the road back into shape the way they plan, the way the city ordinance is written?
They have, in the letter back in July, they did promise to hire an outside testing consultant at their expense. So that would be helpful to have an inspector or an independent consultant ensure that the road is properly restored.
Okay. Commissioner Tease?
I don't necessarily see a hardship here, and if voted, I would not be in favor of supporting this.
Okay. Alderman Jettie?
But I just, since Mr. Dukran is not here, and since Mr. Paquette isn't here either, on behalf, or the landowners aren't here, I'm wondering if are they under the impression that a deal had been reached here, or
No,
would it be appropriate to table it once again to allow them?
I wouldn't, well, it's certainly up to the board, but I will tell you that Engineer Dukin will say exactly, we don't really have a position. It's really up to the board to decide if this is a hardship or not. We don't like to see roads cut into. It deteriorates them at a much faster rate, even when they're patched. But Mr. Maynard was invited tonight, and he declined to attend. He didn't want to spend any more of his client's money. So they certainly were invited. They had the opportunity. They knew this was going to be on the agenda, and they didn't come. So, I mean, I think we've just been talking about this for an awfully long time, and I think it's really time to take some action.
Okay. Let us move the question. All those in favor of allowing this hardship to go forward, say aye. All those opposed?
Nay.
The opposed have it. The motion does not carry. Item H.
Move to approve the hardship request from Liberty Utilities for excavation to repair 4 grade 2 leaks located at 2 Amble Road, 7 Manchester Street, 28 Vickers Drive, and 121 Lyle Road.
Very good. I see that we do have a representative from Liberty Utilities, if you'd like to share with us.
Good evening,
your-
Brian Frost with Liberty Utilities. I regret in some ways to come back here. These are from our summer leak survey. I know earlier this year, based on our winter leak survey, I was here in the spring. Liberty Utilities would respectfully like to request hardship to repair these glass leaks in an expedient manner. Because as a company, we feel that we should repair our leaks for the safety of the public, to comply with applicable pipeline safety regulations. So we've identified the 4 locations that are in the agenda.
We would support this as well. There are leaks. They should be repaired. So,
Any discussion? Commissioner Pappas?
I don't know if you could quickly, just for the public, because it's not unusual to, we get very nervous when we smell gas leaks. What is the difference between a grade 1 and grade 2 leak?
A grade 1 leak is a leak under the pipeline safety rules is considered a hazardous leak. It's immediately hazardous. So it's something that once discovered, the gas company cannot leave. An example would be gas at a person's house detected at their foundation or inside their house. So we would never leave, no matter what the day. A grade 2 leak is a leak, typically it'd be out in the street, in proximity to houses. It'd be something that we can schedule repair for. We would repair it as soon as possible, typically waiting till weather could, it's required to be repaired within a year, but we would typically wait till it be warmer weather out. We'd monitor it continuously during the winter, and then when we could effect a quality paving repair, we would dig it. Unless it changed, if the leak was shown to be growing, we would repair it immediately. A grade 2, we'd reclassify it.
Thank you.
Very
Someone
good.
asked me that question, so that's why I wanted to get it clarified. Thank you.
Yes.
Very good. Any other discussions? Seeing none, all those in favor of approving the hardship for Liberty Utilities on item H, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it.
Thank you very much for the
Thank you
time
very
tonight.
much, sir. Appreciate it. Item I,
Move to approve the Eversource poll license petitions 21-1407 and 21-1415.
very good. Are there any questions or discussions relative to this item? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. And we're now at the Director's Report under Administration.
okay, so this first picture, you'll probably notice a lot of the ramps on Kinsley Street have been upgraded. Newport Construction has done that work. We now have ADA compliant ramps. The sidewalks are not all ADA compliant, but at least at this point, the ramps are. And we will be paving Kinsley Street very soon, I believe on the 26th, is the date that Newport has, weather permitting. This is the next slide. Sewer and water mains were replaced on Warren Street. We have sewer work going on citywide. Pictured here is work done on the main line at the corner of Ald and Harvard Streets. To date, about 4,400 feet of sewer pipe has been replaced and 23,000 feet of sewer pipe has been lined. And we have also replaced about 72 catch basins and manholes. So we've been doing a lot of work. This was a sewer replacement at the Masonic Building on Main Street. The work was done by Crisp Contracting. You probably saw that. The sewer lateral needed to be repaired, and that was the responsibility of the owner.
Could I ask
Yep.
could I ask a question?
Yes, Commissioner
So
Jack.
all of this
Alderman Jack.
stuff that's been happening on Main Street, we had a nicely paved Main Street, and now it's all
It's a mess.
beat up, and there are pieces of metal across it. Is that all gonna be fixed or
Yeah,
repaired?
our plan is to pave Main Street next year. So, if you're speaking to the trench restorations, and if any that haven't been done will be complete, but we are planning on paving Main Street. It is a mess. It needs to be paved. So, it wasn't originally on the list, but given all of the cuts, we are planning, Engineer Dukran and I have talked about that already. We're gonna add it
So
to our paving list next year.
those pieces of metal, are they gonna be removed and
Yes.
temporarily?
Yes.
paved?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, they will be removed. Yeah, you're right, there has been an incredible amount of work on Main Street this year. So,
Yeah.
but it needed to be paved anyway, so this will give us the opportunity next year to do that. So. This is a new sewer pipe along with some curb repair on Charles Street, where an 1886 pipe had collapsed. So that work was done by Grenice and Sons. And this street actually will be reclaimed and paved in September. So, as you can see, it needs it. The Thornton Road Playground has been removed, and we're working on installing some new equipment. We have a space net and 2 wooden structures that are going in, and some ladybug spring toys. So that'll be a nice improvement in that neighborhood. We're hopeful to have that playground back in line by the end of September. The Al Savage basketball courts at Vietnam Veterans Park on Ledge Street have been painted by Vermont Recreational Servicing.
Could I ask
Yeah.
a question? I'm glad, if you could put that slide back up, and I'm glad that Mr. Caggiano is still here. It looks pretty, but every time it rains, there's a big puddle, and it's unusable for several days. The puddle lasts forever, it seems.
You wanna
If
speak
you go
to
by
that?
there right now, it's underwater. So I was really disappointed to see that, and I'm wondering, can that be fixed?
Nick Caggiano, Park and Rec Superintendent. In order to make our funds go as far as we could, we did a little work in-house, and after it was completely done, we realized we got to do a little more shimming, and possibly do a little drainage work there, and that's being discussed currently with the street superintendent.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
So we had skateboard camp this year with Nolan Monroe, who was, of course, a bronze medalist from the X Games. It was very successful. Visited a number of times. The kids and parents were very happy. It was really a fun camp. So we're looking forward to working with Nolan again next year. This is a new granite bench. This was actually Moore and family had donated this bench actually to the Nashua Country Club, and they wanted it moved to Roby Park at the Jeff Moore Playground, so it was moved. So it looks very nice there. And this is up, I don't know if you have seen the Broad Street Roundabout, but we planted it and it really looks fabulous. So I wanted to point that out, and if you get a chance to see it,
It
really,
looks
we should
great.
do more of this, because this is sustainable plantings. We don't have to weed it, we don't mow it, it's really worked out very well. We have the river fountains, community development purchased them, and we are hopefully hoping to have them installed on August 26th. So the river fountains will be back finally. These are some PAL members enjoying a fun day of fishing at the dock at Sandy Pond. We had a Battle of the Badges. Police and fire teams took the field at Holman Stadium on July 25th. And fire actually won this year. And the charity event helps raise funds for PAL. So it's a great cause. And our Brew Fest was a huge success. We had an estimated 2,700 people in attendance. The estimated revenue was about $60,000, and 70% of that will be going to PAL, and the rest of the money will go to fund next year's event. So, yeah, so that was really successful. The Community Church of the Nazarene held their annual Give Back Sunday event on August 4th, and they constructed 20 picnic tables for us and stained the guardrail on Shady Lane. So we are still thinking about what we're going to do with all the picnic tables. We certainly have use for them in the parks, but they may be used by the school department for their summer program, lunch program. So we're still deciding what we're going to do with them, but that was much appreciated. Very nice group of people. The crews removed 4 trees on East Dunstable Road as part of the sidewalk project in that area coming up. So that's all been grubbed up. We now are just going to be installing the sidewalks, which will happen in the next month. We're working on our red school zone crosswalks. I think we only have a few more left, but they'll all be completed in time for school to start next week. We had a sinkhole on we had a failed sewer main on Vine, which created a sinkhole. We made the necessary repairs. The street department did that. We have installed economic development, purchased all the wayfinding signage, and didn't have really enough money to install it, so Public Works is installing it. And we are more than about 3/4 of the way through. You probably noticed the signage going up, so it looks nice. We're finishing work on the Broad Street sidewalk project. We had some problems, some drainage problems at 422 Main Dunstable, and we excavated some high area and adjusted the grade down a little bit so the water will run off the edge of the road. We finally fixed the rail crossing on Sharon Ave. People are very happy about that. It was getting really, really rough. The railroad has been much easier to work with as of late, so we appreciate that. The existing sidewalk on Ledge Street across from the basketball courts in LaJoy Field were really deteriorated, so we demoed that and paved new berm and sidewalk, which also helped with a drainage issue we were having. So we are removing some existing sidewalk on East Hollis Street near the fire station in preparation of the installment of new curb and sidewalk. This is one of the 3 major sidewalks that we undertook this year, one being Broad Street, the other being East Dunstable, and then this East Hollis Street. We had a motor vehicle damage a retaining wall at the Amherst Street Fire Station. We rebuilt the wall and repaired the asphalt behind it. Still filling potholes. This is a bad section of pavement in front of 9 Clergy Drive that was repaired. And the street department repaved the entrance to the landfill after the new gate was installed. This is just a picture of the chlorine contact chambers that we have at the wastewater treatment plant. During the spring, summer, and fall, we take down the tanks 1 or more times for routine cleaning and maintenance. We have the 2 CAT generators for our energy recovery project, so that hopefully will be back producing power again from the methane we generate. I'd like to thank the Nashua Lions Club for honoring DPW Employee of the Year. That was really an honor. We often don't get noticed unless something goes wrong. So it was really nice to have Matt LeBlanc, who is a solid waste foreman, honored as our DPW Employee of the Year. It's very well deserved. Matt is extremely dedicated. He works almost every weekend. He's just always there making sure his primary responsibility is the landfill. He does a great job. He's also, for snow events, he's a snow route foreman, and he's literally always one of the first people to arrive and the last to leave. So he's really a very dedicated employee, and I had the pleasure of working with him when I was at Solid Waste, and so it almost feels like he's one of my kids. So he's a great guy, and it's a well-deserved honor. And he was thrilled that the Lions honored him for that. So
Looks like he's about 30 years old with 22 years of experience. If I recall, that's how many years you worked for the city?
Yes,
Yeah.
yep.
Great guy.
17 for Public Works and then a few years for the school department, so I think 22, yes. That's correct, yeah. I think he's older than 30, but he's probably somewhere in his 30s. But yeah, he's a great guy, and it was a great honor for Public Works to have an employee recognized like that. So, and I'm sorry that I wasn't there. But the mayor was there, and Commissioner Ackerman was there, and Superintendent Caggiano and LaFleur were there, so. We've been doing a lot of work at the landfill, building our Phase 3 landfill. It's a tremendous amount of work. Charters is doing a good job. We've had a few hiccups, groundwater levels, and DES requiring things that we weren't expecting, but we're getting through it, and we're well on our way. The next regional household hazardous waste collection will be in Pelham on August 24th from 8 to noon. And the Four Hills Landfill and Nashua Recycling Center, of course, will be closed on Monday, September 2nd for Labor Day. And all curbside collection that week will be delayed by one day. And that's it. Any questions?
Very good. Thank you very much. Yes, Commissioner Pappas.
I have actually a couple of comments or suggestions for Park and Rec. So I know that we were waiting for the crosswalks at Greeley Park to be painted. I know we had that special green painting that was there, and I know that whatever we had was kind of expensive, and so we're thinking about what we're gonna do. We lost it, just for the public, we lost it due to when we paved Concord Street. But I'm wondering, I don't know how expensive it is just for temporarily before we make a decision to paint those red. I don't know if the superintendent or the director have an idea. Just because it's, I think, just to let people who drive by there all the time are aware of it, but just that little white paint, also, the crosswalk looks more narrow when there's no paint in the middle.
Yes.
And for people who aren't used to driving by there and seeing kids come out, that park is used like well through October, November.
Yes.
So I just was, I don't know, it was just a suggestion.
No,
And I know that it can be cost prohibitive, but it was just a suggestion.
No, that's a great point. And we do recognize that. What we're doing is we're putting in the XD crosswalks like the others on Concord Street. So those will match. They used to be green. I think we're gonna go with the red that we have, only because we feel like it's better meets MUTCD guidelines. And so, but we're a little ways off from that. We're 4 to 6 weeks. In the interim, we are going to paint them, Commissioner Pappas, because I agree with you. For safety reasons, there should be some paint there. So you'll see we're just gonna put white lines, for now, and then we're gonna put in the XD pattern, just like the others.
Okay.
That is the plan. In fact, I'm surprised they haven't been painted yet. I would have anticipated that they would be, so I'll make sure that happens right away.
And the other comment, suggestion I had, I have to tell you, I was kind of saddened to hear that Manchester had closed a couple of their pools because they didn't have enough lifeguards. I know that's how I spent most of my summer in Manchester, bike across town to Livingston Park. And it's the mother of lifeguards. It's really, once you get your lifeguard training, it's hard to find the recertification classes. And I know my second son, actually, he's, I ended up getting he didn't have his recertification class, so I just had him do the second lifeguard training. I paid for it. And Merrimack hosts one in like June. It was cold. It was cold and it was wet, but that was done. But I'm just thinking in terms of I don't know if Parks and Rec keeps a record of when their folks are up for renewal, even just to go on the website. For example, Southern New Hampshire University will offer recertifications a lot. If kids are due in March, because my guess is you have mostly college students.
In high school, some high
a
school,
lot of high school.
yeah.
Yeah, it's just a suggestion, as I said.
He-
But you can name where you want a job if you have a lifeguard.
He has a pretty robust program for
Yeah,
recertification.
we do. Nick Caggiano, superintendent. We have a couple things that we do. We recognize this, and I talk to my colleagues in other communities, and it's a big thing to get and keep lifeguards. We start them in high school. We have a summer camp program through the swim instructor at the high school, and it's called Guard Start. So you basically get your certification, and we could pretty much guarantee you're going to have a job through high school and through college. But what we do is we have two pool coordinators, Mr. Allen and Ms. Perlin, and what they do is that we sent them to class so they're certifiers. So we self-certify all our guards as they come up, just as a way to keep them. And by doing that, the guards don't have to pay the fee.
Okay.
And that's how we attract and keep more guards in-house. So we have two pool coordinators. We pay a little more, and we pay our guards a little better. And so far, it's working, but it's a struggle every year.
Yeah, no,
I personally go to each pool and say, "You coming back next year? You coming back next year?"
Oh, no, that's great to know. As I
Yeah.
said, the only reason I mentioned it is that I know if you miss the deadline, you have to start from the beginning. And as I said, I was really saddened to hear that Manchester was closing pools because of lifeguards. So I'm really glad to hear that you're up and
Yeah.
running on that.
Yeah, the
That's
pools,
terrific.
tomorrow is the last day for the final two pools. Kids go back to
Right.
school next week, but we've been lucky, even through that hot spell. I worked with the director, and we chatted, and we were able to shift schedules for all the guards, and some of them are young, so they can only work so many hours a week, and we were able to get extended pool hours during that hot spell, so
Well,
that helped a lot.
I'm really glad to hear that you're going all out for that. Thank you.
Thanks.
That's great. Any other commissioner questions and/or comments? Commissioner Tease?
I want to piggyback on what Commissioner Pappas said. I agree 100% that crosswalk is, I didn't hear the beginning part of what she said, but at Greeley Park, I'm down that way several times. And I'm wondering if, not necessarily today or tomorrow, but if we could consider sacrificing one parking spot on either side, or maybe two, to not allow cars, specifically trucks, to park right where the sidewalk, where the walkway comes into the sidewalk, because so often the little kids, take that first step out, even though the parents are making the best efforts to hold on to them, and you cannot see them.
Before they did the paving, where the crosswalk came through on each of the four corners, there was a hash
No one
that,
does it.
that didn't allow you to, they were hashed out, so you couldn't pull right up to the crosswalk. So I think what's gonna happen is when the new ones get put in, then they're gonna come in and repaint those properly so that you're not allowed to get your bumper right up to the edge.
That's a good point.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, any other commissioner comments or questions? Well, I do have one, and I just wanted to ask the director, since we've had public comment in the last month or two from a couple of Ward 5 residents regarding the West Hollis Street and approaching the light after the charter school on the right, whether or not we've done any follow-up discussions relative to and I know what it's called, the turnbuckle that's on the road. Have we done any internal discussions as of yet? Because one of my thoughts, and I'll just throw it out there, is I see it as a big improvement from where we were 3 or 4 or 5 years ago, because people used to race right up to the edge of the bottom of, what, is it not Westgate Village? Ledgewood Hills. And then they just try to move over to the right. Is it possible to consider putting breakable cones where the jug handle is to absolutely make them slow down and move over to the right as opposed to what we have currently? It's just a thought.
Yeah, we could consider that. That's awful for plowing purposes. But it's something we could consider. We looked, you know, there was a lot of discussion before those changes were made, I'm sure you know. And there were people on both sides. You know, there were people that wanted it like chocolate, some like vanilla, but nobody liked the chocolate and vanilla combined. So we consulted a number of traffic engineers, including our own, and also from outside companies. We brought DOT, the lead traffic engineer from DOT in, and what exists now is what they thought was the best scenario in terms of safety. Whenever traffic is merging, it's just never a good situation. You're always going to get that jockeying for position. So no matter what we do, it's always going to be bad. You know, it's bad driver behavior, unfortunately. Some probably a little more enforcement might help. I'm reluctant. Anytime you change a traffic pattern like that, that's when accidents happen. We have been watching it closely. We do have fewer accidents than we had before. In fact, accidents are way down. So that would indicate that it is a safer solution than what existed before. But people do race up and down West Hollis
Right.
Street still. You're correct. And, we could look at some other things. But I would be reluctant to change that now because I would be afraid that if we did, we'd have accidents. Because now people have become accustomed to that traffic pattern now. So,
no question.
but there's no easy solution to that.
Not a problem. Just a follow-up observation, not a criticism.
Mm-hmm.
As you are coming down Wellesley Street, I believe it's Wellesley Street, I live in that neighborhood, I should know all the streets.
Where the traffic light is?
Yeah, where the
Yep.
traffic lights, and you're taking a left onto West Hollis Street.
Yes.
And as you know, people go back and forth against east and west on West Hollis Street, and they're going at a fairly good clip, and they go right through the red light. Is it possible or wise to ask the traffic department to perhaps put an additional delay before the light turns, when on West Hollis Street, the light turns red, that there might be an additional delay before the light turns green, just by a couple of seconds, because I find myself going out there and somebody going right by me, I think that might be a safety enhancement.
We certainly could do that, but I've had a lot of complaints that the light on Wellesley stays red too long. So what you're suggesting is keeping it red a little bit long. We can do that.
I'm saying that keep it red a little bit longer after the
Yep.
red on West Hollis Street engages. So don't let it change into green that as quickly as it does.
And we can do that, except that will create delays both in terms of West Hollis Street and, because you're just taking seconds away.
I understand that,
But yes, that could be done.
one person's life means a lot to me.
Yeah, that could be done.
All right, cool. Any other comments, observations? No. Moving along, we're going to move into personnel.
Under personnel, I move to approve items A, B, and C as presented.
Okay. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Item D. Do we have a motion to move into non-public session, sir?
I move by roll call vote that the board go into non-public session pursuant to RSA 91-A:3, 2B, the hiring of any person as a public employee.
By roll call. May we have the roll call then?
Commissioner Ackerman,
Yes.
Commissioner Pappas,
Yes.
Commissioner Moriarty,
Yes.
Commissioner Teese.
Yes.
Very good. We are officially in non-public session. Thank you, Alderman Jettie.
Bye, Ernie.
Good night.